Hi there, YouTube. Stephen here with Working Out Your Faith. I was thinking about this concept and wanted to talk about it a little bit and tell a little story. So, the way I grew up um, in evangelical Christianity, and I've seen it more in other stuff, on videos and just interacting with other Christian folks. I've seen this tendency to blame inconveniences on the devil and to give God credit for things that make us happy or that are convenient for us. And the way I'm saying convenient and inconvenient, because we tend to say, oh, this is good or this is bad, but we don't really know that. And I'm going to tell a little story to illustrate. So this is a famous story in Judaism. I think it was about Rabbi Akiva. Maybe it was about someone else. Um, I didn't bother to look it up. Anyways, in this story, this rabbi is visiting a city. This is in the old days before cars and airplanes and stuff. And cell phones. He walks to the city. He's been on a long journey, and he has with him a chicken in a cage that he's planning to slaughter and eat for his meal sometime during his journey. And so he's on this long journey. He arrives outside a walled city, and it's just about dusk, and the gate is closed and locked. And so he calls out and says, "Hey, open the gates and let me in." And the people say, "No, we have a policy that at dusk we close the gate and nobody goes in and nobody goes out. That's our policy." He said, "But I've been on this long journey and I need a place to sleep for the night." They said, "Sorry, you're SOL. It ain't, we're not letting you in." And he thinks, well, darn. I mean, you would think, wow, this really sucks. This is bad. And so he ends up going a little bit to the side of the gate, on the outside of the city, and sets up camp. And he has a little fire going, but then a storm comes in, and it's so windy that it puts out his fire, and he can't get it started again. So he's there, he's cold, he's shivering, he thinks, wow, this really sucks. If I would have just been 5 minutes earlier, maybe 10 minutes earlier, I could be sleeping in a nice warm bed right now. And his rooster or his chicken that he has with him that he's going to eat is complaining, and then a fox comes along and eats his chicken, and he thinks, oh, that was my meal for tomorrow and the next day. Now what am I going to eat? So now I'm cold, I'm tired, and I'm going to be hungry. This really, really sucks. But he finally gets a little bit of sleep. It's kind of fitful, but he finally gets some sleep. He wakes up the next morning, and the city gates are open, and he walks in to the city and finds the whole city is devastated. And he says, what happened? And it turns out in the middle of the night, there was a party of raiders that came into the city. They climbed over the city wall, and they slaughtered a ton of people inside the city. They robbed everyone and killed so many people. And he finally understood that all these inconveniences were actually something from God that saved his life. He wasn't in the city, so they couldn't find him. The wind blew out his fire, so they didn't see him. The fox ate his chicken, so they didn't hear him or his chicken. Because of all these inconveniences that happened to him, he actually survived the encounter. And so that story is to illustrate we tend to think of these inconveniences, oh, the devil's trying to get me, or something, or oh, God's trying to test me. Like, we don't know. We don't know exactly why things happen. And in this story, he gets to find out the next morning exactly why these things happened. But for us, we don't necessarily always get to know. It could be that we never find out. Why was there terrible traffic and I was 3 hours late getting home this one day? We might never know. Maybe if I would have gotten home when I was expecting to, something would have happened, and I mean, who knows? I could make up all kinds of things that ended up not happening to us, and we just don't know. Um, and the purpose of this story is to say, trust in God. He knows what he's doing a lot better than we do. And so this is a Jewish story that I told. But Christians will often quote, I think it's from Romans, where it says, we know all things are for the good of those who love God. Something like that. Um, Christians often quote that, but I don't know that they're really understanding the gravity of that. Like we see in this story, wow, these things that happened to this guy were extremely inconvenient. And yet they all happened in order to save his life. Um, so that's my little thought for the day.